Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so in our last session, we were discussing about the machine dependent features of assembler, where we have seen how the extra features provided by SIC bar XC can actually change the process of assembly. So we had considered different types of addressing mode. We had considered different types of instruction formats in order to assemble the instruction. So the process was completely different from SIC standard model, right? So we have seen how the program gets assembled and written as an object program. Any doubts regarding the object program conversion? Because this is very, very important from examination point of view, right? If any doubt is there, you can ask. You can drop a text in the message box if you have any doubts, right? So we saw that the assembly of instructions are completely different from SIC standard model. We had to consider the instruction formats, different types of instruction formats, and different types of addressing mode while trying to assemble the instruction. There are peculiar cases that you are supposed to look into. Like, for example, by default, every instruction will be assembled using PC relative addressing mode as long as the displacement is within 12 bits, right? So we know that the 3-byte instruction format is having 12-bit 12-bit displacement field. So if the displacement is larger than 12-bit, then we are supposed to go with the base relative addressing mode. So if it is larger than 12-bit also, in this case, then we are supposed to go with extended format. Of course, those instructions will be present in the program in the format of extended format, which can't be assembled using base or PC relative addressing mode. And one more thing is backward references, right? So forward reference will always lead to positive displacement, but when you are making a backward reference, then you'll get negative displacement. Okay, so whether it be PC or base. So when you're using a backward reference, then the negative displacement has to be represented using 2's complement. So that is one thing that you need to remember. So one example that we can see here is JC loop, right? So here the label is present at 0006, but PC value will be 001A. So the instruction is actually referring backwards. So we need to ensure that the displacement, the negative displacement is represented using 2's complement. Okay. Then the case of immediate instruction. So immediate addressing mode is indicated with hash. But there are two cases that you are supposed to consider. The first case is when you have a label. The second case is when you actually have an operand or a number. Okay, so when you have a number, you directly write them by setting I value to 1. Okay, like as you can see here, I have done that. Then if it is a label, then we are setting I value to 1, of course. But along with that, we are supposed to set PC value to PC or base, whatever it is, depending upon the displacement. So we're supposed to set P value to 1 and calculate the displacement. Okay, so which we did in this particular case. Then comes the case of indirect addressing mode. So in that case, we'll set N value to 1. And of course, because it's a label, we will be either using PC or base. Normally, it would be PC, but if it can't be assembled using PC, then you're supposed to go with base relative addressing mode. Okay. The next one is which one? Extended format, right? So extended format instruction, 4-byte. So it uses direct addressing mode, and it will set the E bit to 1, right? So it will set the E bit to 1, and you will specify the address directly. Okay. So I also discussed about indexed addressing mode. So when you find an X in the instruction, supposed to mark X as 1, and you are supposed to consider the value of X. Value means the content of register X into target address calculation. But normally at the beginning, X would be pointing to 0, or if any value of X is given, then you can consider that for target address calculation. But if it is 0, then you need not consider it at the time of assembly. Okay. Then we saw how we assemble different instructions of format 2. Okay, of course, we did not come across any instruction that is format 1, but I already showed you which are the instructions. There are around 6 instructions which are format 1, right? So if that's the case, you just write the opcode, that's it. Then any other cases that I have left out? No, I guess, right? So these were some of the modifications that we actually did when we considered the assembly process of SIC bar XC. Okay, right. So we also discussed about one more concept, which was the concept of program relocation. Right. So normally, as I mentioned, in a multi-programming environment, so we need to ensure that the system is utilized properly. So what we do is we normally run multiple programs at a time. So when you are running multiple programs at a time, then obviously you need to have some sort of dynamic way in order to execute your program. Means your program should be able to load anywhere memory is available and still execute. So if you are considering a program that is written for SIC standard model, it has a fixed address, and that would actually pose a problem, because it may not be possible for us to run the program at the same memory location that has been specified. Like for example, if the program was supposed to be run at 1000 and it ends at 2000, something like this, let me assume that it is program A, then this program needs to get the memory from 1000 to 2000. So if doesn't, then it will not execute. Suppose if, for example, from 1000 to 1500 memory is available, okay, and then after that some program has occupied the memory from 1500 to 2000. Okay, in that case, even if here memory is available, we will not be able to execute that program, because this program has a fixed address. Okay, so such programs I forgot to mention in the last class. So they are also called as absolute programs. Okay, they are also called as absolute programs. So what's an absolute program? That has a fixed address. Means if that program is assembled using 1000, it has to be executed at 1000. Okay, if it's assembled using 5000, it has to be executed at 5000. It can't be run anywhere else. So such type of programs are actually called as absolute programs, right? So the problem with absolute programs is, as I said, it has to require the memory that it has assigned with. So if not, then it will not be possible for us to run that particular program. Now this is not okay when it comes to a multi-programming environment. So what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to run the programs wherever memory becomes available. So we need that dynamicity. So the solution to that is to make the program relocatable. Okay, so any program that's capable of executing anywhere in the memory, right? So that such programs are actually called as relocatable program. Now we saw that the SIC bar XC program, right? So it is relocatable. Why? Because it uses relative addressing mode, and most of the time the relative addressing mode automatically solves our problem. So even if we load the program somewhere else in the memory, the content of PC gets adjusted, the content of base gets adjusted. So all the relative addressing would actually resolve themselves, and the program would actually have a correct instruction to execute. So that's one of the advantage of using the relative addressing mode. But we have an issue with only one instruction, which is the extended format. So extended format instruction poses a problem because it uses direct addressing mode. So it has a fixed address in its address field, and you cannot actually change the address during runtime. So what has to be done is, when we load the program, if we are able to know where the program is going to be loaded, then we can make the modifications. So what's the modification? The modification is that if I add the starting address of the program, right? So I explained this in the last session. If I add the starting address of the program to the direct address, then the instruction would be actually pointing to the correct address. Like for example, let us consider the program that we have assembled. We have an instruction at 0006 pointing to 1036. So program loaded at 000, read record was present at 1036. So this program executes correctly. But when the same program is loaded at 5000, so program is loaded at 5000, So return address will be plus 5000, right? So 1036 plus 5000, it is 6036. But the instruction would still be pointing to 1036. So if I want to make it to point to 6036, then what I need to add here, I need to add 5000 here. Okay. In the same way, if the program gets loaded at 7420, then I need to add 7420 to this location or to this particular instruction, so that it points to 8456 where read record actually lies. Okay, if we don't do that, then the instruction would be pointing to 1036, which is obviously not a part of the program. So it will be pointing to a wrong address. So this should not happen. So we need to ensure that when we load the program or when we load that instruction, we make this modification. Okay, and as a result, we introduce a new set of record called as the modification record, and this modification record will actually give us that information, or give that information to where the modification should actually occur. Modification in the sense adding the starting address of the program. Okay, so we start with M, writing the modification record. Then we specify the starting location of the address field to be modified. Now, as I said, it is 1 byte skipped in that instruction. Like for example, the instruction if is 4B101036, something like this, then I will skip the first byte because the first byte does not require modification, as it is majority part of it is opcode. So we'll skip the first byte, and then I'll write the starting address. Okay, like for example, if this instruction was present at 0006, then I will write it as 0007. I'll skip 1 byte and write it. So means this is the location where the modification has to take place. Okay, then I need to specify from column 8 to 9 the length of the address field that has to be modified in half bytes. Half bytes means address field I need to specify. So 20-bit address field is there in our format 4. So 20-bit expressed in half bytes is how much? 5 half bytes, right? So we'll write 0, 5. Got it? So this is how we write the modification record for our program. Okay, and as you can observe here, so this is the SIC/XC program completely assembled object program, that is, and now we have added the modification record for the same. Okay, so we had 3 instructions that actually used format 4. So here we have modification records for those 3 instructions. So I've been underlined the same instructions. So that is how things are going to work. Okay, so this is with respect to program relocation. So this completes the machine dependent features of an assembler. Okay, we have to discuss about machine independent feature, but before going to that, I will just skip ahead and discuss about the concept, one of the important concept that is required, which is loader and linkers. Okay, so there's a lot to learn about this particular system software, loader and linker, but unfortunately in the syllabus they have specified a very small part. Okay, they specified a very small part, and that only corresponds to loaders. Okay, now as I already explained at the beginning in the introduction of our subject, system softwares are those that makes the system usable, and loader and linker are also one of the type of system software. Okay, what's the purpose of this loader and linker? Let us just check. Okay, up to this particular point, what we have understood is a programmer or a user writes a program. So let us assume that it is written in assembly level language. Okay, so he's written a program in assembly level language. So we'll call it as a source program. Okay, just a second. All right, so students, if you are out of the meeting due to some technical reasons, and if you are not able to join in, then I have shared another link with you. I hope you can see this, right? So the same link, you can use that to join the meeting. Okay, so this also contains the same screen share and as okay, right, because I see it's exceeded 100. So suppose if somebody logs out due to some reason, ensure that you join in using the second link. Okay. In the next session, I will share separate links for A section and B section. Okay, so as I was discussing, we have the, sorry, just a second. Okay. So we have the program written in assembly level language. We have the program written in assembly level language, and this program was given to assembler, right? We know what the assembler did. So the assembler converted that program into an object program. Okay, converted that program into an object program. So we can consider that this can be an assembler or a compiler, and the source program to be any type of a program written in any language. Like for example, it can be an program written in assembly level language, or it can be a program that is written in high level language like C or C++. Okay, when this is the case, we will have the corresponding program, like assembly level language program will be converted by assembler into object program, and a high level language program will be converted by compiler into an object program. So object program means what? This is the program that is in binary and which is understood by the machine. So we are supposed to load this program and execute this program. So we are supposed to execute this means how? We are supposed to put it in main memory, and we are supposed to begin the execution of the instructions that are now converted in binary. Now, who helps us in this process? The system software like loader and linker is going to help us in this process. Okay, so let us look into how exactly a loader and linker. We're supposed to look into loader and linker, but unfortunately, we'll just look into what is the purpose of a loader. But however, we'll discuss about what a linker does. Okay, so as told, the source program will be written in assembly level language or high level language, but obviously we know that in the end it would be converted into an object program, of course by a corresponding compiler or a assembler, and this object program is supposed to be executed on the machine. Okay, so as I said, the program will be converted by an assembler or a compiler, which will translate your instructions into binary, and now this program has to be loaded into the memory for execution. So who does this job? There is a program or a system software called as loader, which actually performs this job, right? Now basically the loader has the following functions to perform. First thing is loading. Okay, what do you mean by loading? So when I'm saying that loader loads the program, or the process involved is called as loading, what do you mean by this? So loading means allocating memory location and bringing the object program into the memory for execution. Okay, so loading process involves the following task. The second function that the loader is supposed to perform is called as linking. Okay, what do you mean by linking? So linking means combining two or more separate object programs into one and supply the information that is required in order to have a reference between them. Okay, now remember, when you write a program, for example, if you write a program in high level language, then in that high level language you would actually use library functions, or you might have written some other program that has to be linked with your program. So the job of performing the linking between one program with other program, or maybe with a library function or a library program, is the job of linking. Okay, so you have to combine the programs, right? How do we combine? It's up to the linking, and then we are supposed to provide the necessary information to have references between both of those programs. Okay, so this is the second functionality of the loader, which is to perform linking. Okay, the third functionality is relocation. We have already discussed about relocation in assembler, right? So what do you mean by relocation? Should be able to run the program anywhere in the memory, right? Now loader's job is to load the program. So obviously it will look at the beginning where memory location is available, and there it will put the program for execution if it fits in. Okay, now in order to execute, that program has to be a relocatable program, right? So obviously if it's a relocatable program, the loader would be able to load the program where the memory is available, and then it will load it and start the execution of that. Okay, so this process is called as relocation. So obviously that information required for the loader is provided by assembler, okay, or the compiler that actually generates the object program. So what do you mean by relocation in terms of loader? So this is to modify the object program such that it can be loaded at any address different from the location originally specified. Okay, like for example, our object program that we have generated, for example, so that was assembled using address 0000. But our loader is still capable of loading that program at address 5000 and executing that program. So loading the program at an address other than the one that was originally specified. So this task is actually called as relocation. So these are the three main functions of our loader. What are they? So it is supposed to load the program, it is supposed to link the programs together, and it is supposed to relocate the program whenever required. Okay, so these are three major functions of our loader, right? So which you can see here in this diagram. This is the definition of a loader. So loader is a system program that performs the loading function. Okay, now there are different types of loader. So if the loader is simply performing a loading function, then such type of a loader is called as just a basic loader. Okay, so what's the purpose? It will simply bring the object program into memory and starts its execution. So it's quite simple. You have an object program. For example, you can observe in this diagram. So a source program is there, which was translated into an object program. Now this translator can be either an assembler or a compiler. So once the object program is generated, the loader, right? So the loader is going to load this program into memory and begin the execution of that particular program. So this is the basic job of a loader, right? So how exactly it does that, right? So that is what we are supposed to look into. Okay, like as I said, this is a example, particular example where we have an assembler that converts the assembly level language program into object program, and that object program is loaded into memory by the loader, and the execution is actually started. So this is how a basic loading function would actually look like. Okay, when it comes to advanced task, okay, the advanced task may be considered as linking. So in that case, the process would look something like this. Okay, source program is converted into object program, but that object program requires another object program. Okay, so maybe some other function or some other subroutine or some other library program or something like that. So in that case, we will have an additional program which is also a part of loader to perform the linking. So what it will do is, like for example, if we have program A and that program A requires program B and program C. Okay, so what linker would do is it would associate program A with program B or program C. Now one way to do that would be to combine all the programs into a single program. Okay, so this is also a way of linking. Okay, or otherwise, it can also be something like providing or resolving the references between the programs that are actually being referred. Okay, so this is also called as linking, right? So that job is performed by the linker to produce an executable code, something like this. Okay, it will produce an executable code, and that program is then loaded by loader for execution. So this is how the process of loading as well as linking together is performed by by the loader. Okay. Okay. Right now, as I mentioned, there are different types of loader. One of the loader is called as an absolute loader. So this is the simplest type of loader that actually performs only one function, which is loading. Okay, so this is the job of an absolute loader, as the name itself indicates. Absolute loader is related with absolute program. So absolute program means what? That which cannot be executed anywhere, or that is not relocatable. So this type of loader is called as a absolute loader. This is one type of loader that exists. The second type of loader is called as a bootstrap loader, right? So this is important. So we have a bootstrap loader, and the third one is called as a relocating loader, and the fourth one is called as a direct linking loader. Of course, as I said, we were supposed to discuss about these two, but only these two have been suggested in this syllabus. Okay, so I'll go with both of them. Both of them are quite simple because, as I said, no complex operations are present in them. They are supposed to just load the absolute program. They're supposed to load the absolute program. Just a second, I believe I got a text. Okay, nobody has joined in the other. See, as I said, if you are unable to join here, you can join in the second link that I have provided. Okay, so already I can see that here we have 100 strength. Okay, so if you log out, okay, somebody has joined in, right? Ujjwal, are you able to hear me? Hello, Ujjwal, Janvi or Mahanta, are you able to? Okay, right. So what I was doing? Okay, so as I was telling, there are different types of loader. Absolute loader and bootstrap loader is what we are supposed to discuss about. Okay, so what's an absolute loader? So it's a very simple loader that's job is to load the object code into a specific memory location. Specific memory location in the sense wherever the program specifies. So no changes there. So at the end, the loader program would actually jump to the specified address to begin the execution of the loaded program. Okay, remember the object program is going to be loaded instruction by instruction. Okay, so instruction by instruction, we are going to load the program into memory. So once we are done, we will jump to the specified instruction to begin the execution of the program. Okay, so this is what an absolute loader does. Now the advantage of an absolute loader is that it's very simple and efficient to implement. It's a very small program that does the basic thing of loading, but of course there are disadvantages to it. So if you want, if the programmer needs to specify the actual address and difficult to use subroutine libraries, right? So it does not perform any advanced features or functionalities like linking or relocation. So obviously there is no flexibility with regard to the programmer loading the different subroutines or changing the actual address at runtime. So this is one of the drawback of using an absolute loader, right? So this is a simple diagram that actually shows an absolute program. So object program is there. So object program specifies that program has to be loaded at 1000. So the absolute loader will load the program at 1000 and then begin the execution of that. Okay. So how does the absolute program actually work? So there is an algorithm for an absolute loader. Hope you're able to see this. Okay, I'll show the one that's present in textbook. Okay, I shared this textbook with you. This is the same thing. Okay, as you can observe, same algorithm. You can study from textbook as well. Okay. Right. So this is the algorithm. Once again, this has been asked in examination several times. Okay. So let us look into how exactly the algorithm works. Okay. So reference is that I have an object program. Okay, I have an object program. You know that an object program contains header record, text record, and end record. I'm only talking about an absolute object program. Absolute object program means what? That which cannot be relocatable. Like for example, any program that we have written for SIC standard model. Okay, I'll write SSCSM. Any program that we have written for SIC standard model, it is a what is that? Absolute program. Got it? Okay. Right. So we have header record, we have text record, and we have end record. Okay. So first we will begin by reading what? The first is header record only. Okay. So what information we will have in header record? Header record contains H, then the name of the program, correct? Then the name of the program, then the I believe starting address of the program, and then the length that is specified. So this information is present in header record. So we begin by reading the header record. Now, why should we read the header record is the first question. Because I will get some information out of it, right? So the absolute loader is supposed to load your object program into memory. So where in memory? That's the first question. Correct? Where in memory? So, and what is the size of this program? And what is the name of this program? So all that information it needs to verify. So it will verify the program name and program length. Now why program name and program length has to be verified? Name has to be verified because you may have more than one program in your system and you should be sure that you are loading the correct program. So we need to verify the name of the program. Second thing is you have to verify the length. Why? Because memory constraints. So if memory is available or not to load this particular program, so obviously I will know only by checking the length of the program. So if the length of the program fits into the memory, or if memory is more than the length, then I know that I can load this particular program and execute. So first it will verify these two things, and then if everything is fine, then we will go ahead to check the next record in our object program, which is text record. So therefore we will read the first text record in our program. Okay, so we know that in an object program we can have multiple text records. So obviously when I take one text record, it will contain like around 10 or 10 instructions. Okay, 10 or even less than that. So we'll take that particular text record and we will load those first 10 text records, sorry, 10 instructions in that text record. So once we are done, then we'll pick up the second one and then we will load all the instructions in that particular text record. So this process has to happen until what? Until end assembler, until end record. Okay, so that's why We have a while loop here because we have to repeatedly pick up the text records until the end record is found. So while record type is not equal to E, you will do the following. What is it? Okay. So first thing is, if the object code, okay, the thing is, we will just move the object code to the specified location. Okay, we will move the object code to the specified location. Like for example, if my text record was something like this, T 000 1000, length was 1E, and the first instruction was 141036, something like this. Second was 481039, something like this. Suppose if it was like this, what we'll do is, so assume that this is memory. Okay, this is the starting address 1000. So it says at 1000 you have to load this instruction. So it will just put 141036. So this is what moving object code to the specified memory location is. Okay, next it will put at 1003 481039. So this process will go on. So this is supposed to happen. Okay, once we have moved all the instructions from one text record, then we will read the next object program record. Okay, so it can be a text record or it can be an end record. So if it is a text record, the same process would be repeated. If it is an end record, then we will come out of this while loop, right? So once I come out of this while loop, what does it mean? The program is actually loaded, right? So it will jump to the address specified in the end record to begin the execution of the program. So jump to the address specified in the end record. So it's quite simple, right? So we'll read individual records, and as we do that, we will also do the following. Okay, so one thing here, if object code is in character format, then we need to convert it into its internal representation. Okay, now remember, we had written our program in hexadecimal. So obviously we will have A, B, C, D and all. Okay, so this needs to be converted to their binary equivalent. That's what this line is. Okay, that's why it's been put in bracket, that we need not convert all of them. But if you have written something in character format, which is obviously in hexadecimal, so obviously it needs conversion. So our program has been assembled using hexadecimal format. So obviously there is a requirement to convert that to an internal representation. Internal representation in the sense nothing but binary. Okay, so this is how an absolute program actually works, or this is the algorithm for an absolute program. You can observe this is the sample program, SIC standard model program that we had used. H copy 0001000. So this is the memory map. Okay, so these are memory addresses, as you can observe, at 1000, right? So look at memory address 1000. We have first instruction 141033. Okay, immediately followed by that we have second instruction 482039. Then immediately followed by that we have the third instruction 001036. Okay, so like this, the absolute loader would load our program into memory and begin the execution. Okay, so this is the absolute loader. Right? So I have to discuss about bootstrap loader. I think you have MATLAB at 10:30. For how long it will be taken? Any idea? Okay, nobody is answering. Okay, I know that at 10:30 you have MATLAB. So do inform